So, Superdeluxe MegNeg on the transition patrol. So I started with the DPX2, that's what the bike comes with. Couldn't find a supple enough ride. It was definitely a charger, it's definitely a hard charging shock, but it's not very complex. It doesn't, maybe not very advanced. I don't know what the goes with that shock, but I couldn't find an excellent setup. I found a good setup and I found a great setup, but I couldn't find optimal. I couldn't find it to be supple as well as efficient. It was really choppy or really supple. Like really choppy and efficient, or supple and slow. Like the bike wouldn't carry speed. I couldn't get that support. You add tokens, it'd become more choppy. So Superdeluxe, I got the Superdeluxe eventually. I ordered it, took forever to come. They had to make it. Eventually got it. I think it was like an 11-week process. Almost 3 months I waited for it. Got it, put it on, loaded it up with spacers. So massive contrast between the DPX2 and this. So the DPX2 with their Evol, which is their negative side air spring, the extra volume, it's quite a big negative chamber in relation to the positive chamber on the DPX2. The Superdeluxe with their Debonair, which is the larger negative air chamber, isn't that big in comparison to the positive chamber. Now what made me come to that conclusion is the DPX2, even though it's got a smaller positive air chamber overall as well, another story, the DPX2 I had to run 0 spacers, and to get close to that feeling, that same feeling of support in this, I was running all of the spacers and still didn't have the bottom out support that I wanted. So I went back and forth, to see if I was in the wrong with too much, too many spacers in this shock. So I went less and less, and more pressure to make up for not having not having as many spacers in there. And it was still, there was just no support, no bottom out support. So I put the DPX2 back on for a little while I was waiting for a MegNeg to roll up. Got the MegNeg, put the MegNeg on. I started with no tokens in there, which is the largest it can be. So the negative air chamber with no tokens in there, with no bands, sorry, they're not tokens, they're bands. Sev, come here. It's 211% the size of the standard Debonair. So it's basically 111% larger. So it's double the size of the negative chamber without changing the size of the positive chamber. So I started with no bands. So you got no bands is 211%. 3 bands, one band in there is 199%, so 99% bigger. 2 bands in there is 88% bigger, I believe. 3 bands in there is 76% bigger, and all 4 bands in the negative side makes it 64% bigger. So with all 4 bands in there, it's still a massive increase in your negative chamber. Started with the no bands in there. I think I started with the 3 tokens in there. I can't quite remember, but I went back and forth between all the tokens and none of the tokens. And even at no tokens, it was just too choppy. It was a little bit too choppy. I couldn't find what I wanted. The shape of the spring was not constructive. It wasn't where I wanted. So it was like the negative side was too big for how big the positive side was. The positive side needed to be a larger volume in order to have that negative chamber that big. So this is only a 205 eye to eye, 65mm stroke. So fair bit of stroke in there, but it's only a 205 eye to eye, which makes that overall size, the length of that positive chamber, not super big. So bit of a rant there, bit of a tangent. Anyway, started with none in the negative side, ended up with all of them in the negative side, and found a much better setup, a much more supple setup with the bottom out support that I was looking for. So with all 4 bands in there, so 64% larger, and 1 token in the positive, it was excellent, but just not quite enough bottom out support, not quite enough spring to push against. So I went to 2 tokens in the positive side, left the negative side full of bands. So 2 tokens in the positive side gave me more support, but it just kind of became a little bit more choppy. Rode that for a while, it was good, it was efficient, but I didn't like the choppiness. I didn't like that. I wanted a little bit more soft without being less supportive, which is a hard thing to look for. You really you're grasping at straws to find that perfect setup between your rebound, your compression, your air pressure, and your token configuration. So what I did is I took 1 token out. So now I'm at 3 negative, I took 1 negative band out. So I'm at 3 negative bands now. When I was at 4 negative bands and the 1 token, which was almost perfect, it was really, really good, super supple, heaps of control, mountains of grip. I was at 165 PSI and it was excellent. I just wanted a little bit more support without more chop. So I took a negative band out. So we've made that negative side a little larger again. We've made the negative spring a little bit larger again, which has demanded a little more air pressure. I've left it at 1 token in the positive, and now I'm at 175, 176. I just raced on the weekend at the Geezer, put in a pretty good effort really, and I got 175 PSI. It was perfect. I actually ran it in mid for almost the entire race because a lot of the trails were pedally and it was wet, so everything feels a little bit more dull and a little bit more less abrupt. The hits feel less abrupt when it's really, really wet like that. It was real slippery, real slick, but I had enough confidence in my forks and my tyres to not worry about that little bit extra chop coming from running the shock in mid at the back. Worked perfectly, bike carried heaps of speed, it was flawless. I put in a really, really good result. I did get disqualified for a line choice, but that's another story. My overall time put me 5th in elites, and there wasn't a huge field. A lot of the hitters kind of didn't make it, or a few of the hitters didn't make it, but either way I was happy with my ride, happy with my result. I smashed it. The bike felt killer, the shock felt good. That, going back to the setup, that 3 tokens feels like it's the sweet spot. So I've got 3 tokens, 3 bands in the negative, 1 token in the positive. That's 175 PSI. I can probably go to 177 and the spring feels perfect at 177 PSI. At 180, it feels a little bit stiff. It's crazy that a couple of PSI can make that difference, but once you're tuned into what you're looking for and you're feeling, that literally, the 2 PSI, 2 or 3 PSI, either way makes a huge difference. So I'm at the point now where I can go another token in the positive. I've got heaps of room to go tokens, but physically. But for feel, if I'm going to ride a fast, flowy, jump style trail, I'd go 1 more token in the positive to bring it up to 2 tokens and leave that negative as it is, and it'd be perfect. Comparing this shock to the DPX2 without the MegNeg, still way more supple, definitely more supple, more grip, more control, but I couldn't get the tune right for this particular bike because the negative side the negative air chamber isn't big enough in the standard configuration. I think in the future Rockshox rear shocks are going to have, by standard, a larger negative air chamber. So it's like the old forks, the old Pikes and Lyrics and whatever. You had to load them all the way up. You had to put 3 or 4 tokens in to get the forks to feel good. Now that we've got this larger negative air chamber, it's eliminated that need, and now we're only running 1, 2. Some guys are running up to 3 now. But it's definitely improved things. So I think that's the way that the Rockshocks are going to go. They're going to make the standard setup a little bit larger on the negative side. Does it make your shock more supple and all of these bits and pieces? No, I don't think it does. I think it has the potential to make it more supple through a better setup. It's not bolted on, all of a sudden my shock's more supple. Definitely not. That's not how it works. It works in the fashion that if you can't find enough support relative to your the kinematics of your suspension on your bike with that shock, if you've got a Rockshox Superdeluxe or a Deluxe and you've got it full of tokens, you've gone the Nardog, so you can increase the overall amount of tokens. Nardog plus 2 is 4.5. If you're at that full max and you're finding that you've got no bottom out support and you're still quite low in the air pressure, this is definitely for you. It's definitely going to shift it's like a compression tune. So you've got a compression tune, a light compression tune, a medium compression tune, and a firm compression tune, and you've got 12 clicks on the light, and then those 12 clicks, the last 4 clicks cross over into what the medium tune would have been, and then you got 12 clicks of medium tune, and then you got the heavy tune, which the last 4 clicks of the medium tune will also translate into the first 4 clicks of the heavy tune, or the so on and so forth. This is the same as that. So you've gone from a light airspring tune to a medium to firm airspring tune. So you can support tune, not airspring tune, but airspring support tune. So if you're looking for more support, but you're already maxed out on tokens on your Super Deluxe, this is for you. It's not bolted on, make it more supple. It's bolted on, make it more supportive, and chase that feeling of, because you can still make this super harsh, very harsh, unrideable, horrible to ride, shit setup. Or you can make it excellent, and you can do that with the other ones as well. But if your suspension kinematics don't allow for the standard can, it's still, there's not enough ramp up in the suspension, in the bike's design to deal with, to have that configuration, you need the MegNeg for sure. This bike, it is the perfect setup. Everybody keeps telling me to go a coil on this bike. The way that this bike works with this shock as standard tells me it's not going to work well with a coil, but I don't know. It's only a guess. If somebody out there has a coil on a transition patrol and wants to lend it to me, I know it's a long shot, but for sure, holler at me and we can just swap over for a week or a month or whatever, and you can try this thing, or you can borrow my DPX2. I've still got that lying around. If anyone wants to buy that DPX2, it's just been serviced, it's fresh as a peach, hit me up, it's going cheap. So message me on Insta or in the comments on this video, whatever. But overall, definitely an improvement on the bike. I'm not running it super deep in the sag as well. I'm running it right on 30%. I'm running at 30, maybe 31%, which is kind of where I found the DPX2 works best. Anything under 30%, so you go in your 29s for more efficiency, the bike doesn't feel quite as good. Doesn't feel like you get into the stroke. You're always on top of it, and it just doesn't work as well. It doesn't feel nice. So the perfect setup for this bike. If you weren't going to go a MegNeg, I'd say the Super Deluxe doesn't work for this bike. DPX2 is your best bet. I don't know how the X2 works, but I definitely want to try out a coil, see what the goes. I really don't think coils are that much better than these new air setups, but the set and forget principles of the coil is way better. So you're never checking your air pressure, hot day versus cold day or anything like that. You have to worry about that. The spring always performs the same. The only thing that's going to change are your damper characteristics. So on a hot day, your rebound's going to feel a little bit faster and your compression's going to feel a little bit softer. On a cold day, it's going to feel a little bit, the compression will feel a little firmer and the rebound will feel a little slower. So overall, MegNeg, wicked upgrade. Like I said previously in the comments I made, if your bike's already supportive enough and you're just looking for more supple, I don't think this is the way to go. You'll probably end up finding that it's too much. You'll go all bands in there and no tokens in your positive, and you'll still find that it's too stand up for you. It's too stiff a spring for you. Maybe not, I don't know. But that's kind of what I'm feeling. So if you're in the market, you want more support, run the MegNeg for sure, bearing in mind that it will increase your overall pressure. So if you're already at the 250s, 260s, it's probably not for you. As you know, these are, I'm pretty sure they're 300 max pressure. So let's have a look. I don't think it's actually got it printed on here, which is odd. Usually they've got it, oh yeah, here we go, 325 max PSI. So, they will handle the 325 max, but I believe it puts more strain on the all your seals and whatever, and it's just working harder than it needs to. Unless you're a real heavy dude and you need that kind of pressure. But yeah, for me, my weight, 70 kilos, or 75 on the bike, 74 on the bike. This thing's perfect. So super happy with the MegNeg upgrade. It's definitely made this shock worthwhile keeping. I was thinking, if this isn't going to work, it's off. It's going to go, someone else can have it and see if they can make sense of it. But this is perfect. I'm definitely not going to go back to the DPX2. I will put it back on to do a back-to-back now that I know that this thing is set up to its potential more or less. I've got the DPX2 at potential, I've got this at potential. Now I can do a proper back-to-back and see which one performs better on this bike. Even though I already know in my head how it feels on different trails, like for like. So we'll chuck it on. I might get a surprise myself, but yeah, stoked.